What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the recent fight announcement that I kind of talked about earlier on my channel a couple weeks ago, but is absolutely confirmed. UFC Saudi Arabia, February 1st, 2025. Nassourdine Imovov is getting his #1 contender shot against Israel, the last stylebender Adesanya. Also, another fight as probably the co-main event, we have Venom Page going up against Shara Magomedov. That is a great fight in the middleweight division, middleweight main event and co-main event. Great fights all around, but today I kind of want to talk about Adesanya versus Imavov. This is an absolutely blockbuster fight in the middleweight division. If you don't know who Nassourdine Imovov is, he has come up, won an incredible fight streak. He lost to Sean Strickland about in early 2023, but ever since then, Imavov has looked like an absolute monster, getting 3 wins this year against top competition. Adesanya has only fought once in the last 1 year, and I really do think that this is going to be a very dynamic main event, and especially the co-main event. You got 2 of the best strikers in UFC history, even if you don't want to admit it. Shara Magomedov and crazy knockouts, and Venom Page, that as well too. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's talk about the news. Adesanya versus Imavov and Magomedov versus Page. So I kind of want to start with Nassourdine Imovov gets his shot against Israel Adesanya. This is a very big fight in the middleweight that has implications all around the table. You look at Imavov at Adesanya. This was the fight that made the most sense to happen. We did not know if Sean Strickland was getting the title shot, but if he wouldn't, he's already fought both of these guys, and I think that the fight with him would have been with Caio Borralho. Also, like I said, he got the title shot. That's kind of out of the picture. So I do think that Adesanya fighting Imavov does make the most sense out of anyone out of the middleweight division currently. I know that Caio Borralho was possibly in title talks to fight Adesanya, but Imavov makes a whole ton of sense. Imavov is a great striker, as well as Israel Adesanya, but Imavov also has that Brazilian jiu-jitsu game behind him. We have the fight against the Nigerian Adesanya and the Frenchman Imavov, and who really, what does this fight boil down to? I think it's going to be a very big striking category. I do think that Adesanya is probably a more dynamic counter striker and striker in total, but also Imavov is definitely a better, more well-rounded mixed martial artist. Not saying that Adesanya, as we all know, is bad. He's definitely got some grappling game. He's got great takedown defense, and even though he got submitted in Dricus in his last one, that was his first time ever getting submitted in his entire career. So I do think that Adesanya is a good anti-grappler in that middleweight division, and not saying that Imavov is this like overpowering beast that goes out there and takes everyone down, but he is definitely a very dynamic grappler and Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist who definitely has submissions over a lot of different opponents. But I see this fight being incredibly competitive. I think Imavov is really an amazing fighter and a really overlooked fighter in that middleweight division. He is definitely someone who could be a title challenger one day in his UFC reign. You know, I think that he would be a very tough fight for Dricus to go in there and beat because he's so well-rounded. And I know that he did lose to Sean Strickland back in 2023, but really, look at these two guys, and I see a very competitive fight coming back at one another. I see Adesanya kind of winning in the counter-striking exchanges, but a very close, fair fight on the feet. But Imavov kind of having that little advantage on the ground against Adesanya in that one. And if I had to pick someone right now, I actually think I'm going to pick Imavov. I think that it's Imavov's time. I think he's that good. And I think that he might not be this household name that the UFC has right now, but I genuinely think that he is someone who's only going to grow his stock and possibly push himself for a title shot. I mean, he looked incredible against Brendan Allen in his last one. Before that, he beat Jared Cannonier. And before that, he beat Roman Dolidze. All really great wins. And all fights that weren't necessarily close. That Cannonier fight was really close, but Imavov was starting to pull ahead after he got the finish, or before he got the finish in that 4th round. But really, I look at these two, and I see either one of them winning. I think the odds are very close. If me saying that Imavov is going to win, it's not like an 100% confident pick or anything like that, because I do think that this fight is incredibly close, and it has to be looking at the nuances between these two fighters. It is really like a mirror image of one another, where Izzy's a better counter striker, and Imavov is a better Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist. But really, these two guys are some of the most dynamic middleweights in the UFC, and this is a great main event to hold in Saudi Arabia. I know the last main event that was held there was Whitaker versus Ikram Eliskerov, and that was supposed to be Chimaev there, but Chimaev ultimately got sick, and they rebooked that fight for UFC 308. But I do think that this is a very good fight in the middleweight division. I'm actually surprised that Adesanya is fighting someone that's not in that kind of old middleweight loop. You know, you got the Cannoniers, you got the Vittoris, you got the Costas, you got the Sean Stricklands, the Whitakers, all that different type of stuff. He's kind of fought everyone in that way, but I'm super excited to see that Israel Adesanya is going to fight the next generation of UFC middleweights. I think Imavov is a very tough task. I think he's going to be a very good and prominent figure in the middleweight division, probably going to be top 5 or 6 for a couple years coming forward. That's how good I think and how highly I think he is. But if he gets this win against Israel Adesanya, which is a pretty favorable matchup, considering that I think Imavov does a little bit better against strikers than grapplers, although it is pretty close, I do think that Adesanya not having a grappling threat at all is going to allow Imavov to really mix up the game. I think someone like, Brendan Allen was probably maybe a harder fight stylistically. I think someone like Dricus is easily a harder fight. Hamzat easily harder fight. Whitaker's a harder fight, but Adesanya kind of being, I shouldn't say one-dimensional, but having that only stand-up game is going to really allow Imavov to shine in this bout. But I'm going to say my odds are probably like -130 Imavov, -150 or +115 Adesanya. It's really close in my opinion, and this is definitely not a fight that you want to bet on. This is definitely a fight that you would want to stay, just watch and enjoy. And truly, I'm so happy that this is the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia. And before I kind of wrap up this video, I want to talk about the co-main event that was also announced. Shara Magomedov, we knew was going to fight on this card, and we did not know who he was going to be against. I did not think it was going to be Michael Venom Page, because he has been in the welterweight division recently in his last 2 fights. Fought Ian Machado Gary and fought Kevin Holland. And I did not think that he would go up to fight someone like Shara Magomedov, but that is actually the fight that's going to go down. These two are some of the most dynamic strikers in UFC history. Shara Magomedov has 4 fights in the UFC. I think he's got 2 finishes and 2 decisions. His 2 finishes were against Andre Tricoli and against Armen Petrosyan, and then you got his decisions come against Michelle Ilasheshuk and Bruno Silva. You know, I think that he is one of the best strikers, like I said, in UFC history. Had one of the greatest knockouts, that spinning double back fist knockout at UFC 308. But is also a very hungry fighter, as we all know. But Michael Venom Page, one of the fastest fighters in the UFC welterweight division, is only going to be so much faster inside the UFC middleweight division. This is an incredible striking bout, and one of the most dynamic striking bouts in probably UFC history, honestly, with how these guys have flashy knockouts everywhere, all this different type of stuff. I am so excited to really be able to watch this fight, and this is an amazing co-main event. If I had to really pick, I think I'm going to go with Shara Magomedov, because Michael Venom Page has nothing on the ground, and I do think that it's going to be a very close fight. I could 100% see Michael Venom Page catching him with something, super crazy, but these are 2 of the most creative strikers in UFC history, and it's going to be a very fun and back-and-forth bout in the co-main event of UFC Saudi Arabia. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know down below in the comment section what you think about the UFC main event of Saudi Arabia. Nassourdine Imovov, Israel Adesanya, and the co-main event, Michael Venom Page versus Shara Magomedov. That co-main event is absolutely dynamic, has some great strikers in it, and that main event as well has some great strikers too. I am super excited to really be able to watch this card. I think that UFC Saudi Arabia cards are always going to kind of be stacked over there, and considering that this is a UFC fight night card, this is an absolutely banger fight night. One of the most dynamic of main events that you could put together, and one of the best striking fights you could ever put together in Magomedov versus Page. Great card coming at us, and I'm super excited that the UFC is kind of making more dynamic fight night cards, because fights like Joaquin Buckley, Colby Covington usually wouldn't be on a fight night card. Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov, Peter Yan versus Davison Figueiredo, and now Adesanya versus Imavov. These are some great cards, and genuinely, I am super excited to be able to see these 2 individuals go at it and fight in the main event in Saudi Arabia. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always and fully notified as UFC content releases every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.